everyone. We're here on a SheSec Pakistan forum. SheSec Pakistan is the first Pakistan's independent information security community dedicated women. SheSec Pakistan is run by a few passionate individuals who brainstorm together to uplift women in cybersecurity. SheSec aims to provide a channel for existing cybersecurity professionals to showcase their talent. With this single platform, their motive is to fill the voice of cyberspace with women presence, along with bringing the skill and gender gap by creating and sharing opportunities, including career, counseling, technical pieces of training, etc. The CybHer Cafe is a SheTech Pakistan's broadcast series, which we are beginning today, solely designed to gather information and cybersecurity professionals globally to engage in healthy cyber conversations and training to impart knowledge and awareness around the dynamics of cyberspace. So here we begin with the first session of CybHer Cafe. So this is the topic for today's discussion would be cyber risk and data privacy challenges in COVID era. So to begin with, I'm quickly going to introduce myself and the panel to the audience. This is Khwaja Muhammad Ali. I'm currently associated with the banking industry. My focused areas are cybersecurity, technology governance, risk, compliance. I've been in this field for the last 2 decades and plus. In the same area, have been engaged in setting up large cybersecurity, ID security, and GRC setups in MNCs, in the banking industry, in different areas. So I'm honored to be here with all of you. I've got a group of talented, skilled, experienced cybersecurity strategists, experienced specialists, professionals, practitioners. So I would like each of them to introduce themselves quickly. So I have with me Maliha here. So Maliha, if you could just explain, quickly brief yourself.
Thank you, Ali, for giving me the opportunity to start it with and to introduce myself. But before that, I would like to thank SheSec Pakistan for giving me the opportunity to be here, and very humble to be part of today's session among wonderful and sound knowledgeable professional from the industry. Well, by introduction, my name is Maliha Masood, and I am IT professional for about more or less 15 years of experience in the field of information security, information system auditing, cyber security, of course, coupled with project management and governance. Very fortunately, I've started my career in the field of information system auditing. And because I was associated with one of the big four firms, so I was also engaged with the security and risk related projects, risk related IT projects, along with my core responsibility, which was information system auditing. Currently, I am heading an information security department in a banking sector. Throughout, I have been consistent in the same field, which is information system auditing and information security, cut it short, revolving around the risk. Beside my professional career, I have been volunteering some international bodies like PMI and ISACA. For PMI, it's quite shorter duration as compared to ISACA. I have said ISACA Karachi as a board of director for one tenure only, but for international, it's been a decade now. And as of today, I am holding two positions from the international platform, which is social media advocate and She Lead Tech ambassador. And along with that, I am also serving different university, namely NAD, PFK, Jinnah University for Women, as a visiting faculty in the cadre of assistant professor.
Okay, so thank you, Maliha. A gentle experience you've shared with all of us. I've got a very good dear friend of mine on with me. We happen to work together, I believe, some 15, 16 years back in Federal Investigation Agency in the same area. So it's very good to see you on today. And a quick intro that I have for On is that he's a seasoned CISO now, working with the bank. So On, over to you, if you could just brief yourself, please.
Thank you so much, Ali. Assalamu alaikum, audience. And I'm actually grateful to SheSec who have invited me for this panel discussion. And thank you so much, Ali, for your very fine introduction. Actually, yes, it was very nice meeting you, meeting you after such a long time. Before introducing myself, I would like to appreciate the efforts taken up by SheSec in bringing up and bring on the female colleagues of ours and in the information security field, and which is, or in the information security, we know that is already deficient of resources and skilled human resource. So it is actually need of the hour that female colleagues of ours should come into the field and should play their important role in actually filling up the gap. About myself, I have around 21 years of professional experience in IT and information security, specifically in information security and network security. I've been here for the past 17 years. And I have experience in working in the defense sector and law enforcement sector. And now for the past 4 years, I am working with a financial organization. The feather in my cap is that I am the author of Cybercrime Law of Pakistan. And the good part is that in FIA, when Ali and I were together, we established 6 digital forensic laboratories across Pakistan. This was the first time in the region, in this South Asian and Asia Pacific, South Asian region, and we have actually faced a lot of challenges in establishing this environment, the new thing, the new setup, and because it was a technology-driven law enforcement sector startup. So for the information security, when I jumped into the corporate environment, it was actually the environment was not new for me because I have been working with them, and I've been working with due to my previous role. I had good knowledge about them, but implementing the controls, yes, it was a challenge, and getting on board the relevant people and convincing the board of directors of the organization, yes, it is a challenge. So we have been blessed that the organizations, yes, they appreciated the efforts, and now I have been able. Now this is only because of the support that I've received that I'm here and speaking in front of you. Thank you so much, Ali. Ali, you are on the mute.
Ali, you are on the mute.
I'm sorry. So we've got people from different areas in our community all here. So thank you on. And finally, we got Dr. Rubab here. Thank you for taking time out. So Rubab, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me in this kind session of cyber risk and data privacy, which is being arranged by SheSec. It's my honor to be part of this platform and join you all, the worthy guests. I am Dr. Sadaf Rubab. I am serving as assistant professor at NAST, Pakistan. I am engaged in multiple international and local research projects. I would like to highlight on one of the very relevant research project that I'm undertaking now, which is more close to the area we are discussing today in our session. So I'm engaged in a research project where we are focusing on establishing the cyber awareness centers in Pakistan. So with these cyber awareness center, we want to highlight on different challenges for business and how they should be adopting to an operating environment in which the new norm is working from home has become there. And awareness on the cyber threats and bullying is a present priority and a pressing priority for these days now. So we are focusing mainly on this issue, and plus we are focusing on the combined and the curriculum that we should be adopted to the school, college, and university level on the cybersecurity. So that's all we are doing in that project, which I thought that I should be highlighting over here and take the advantage of this platform and introduce my project to the audience as well.
Thank you, Rubab. So we've got a very talented, skilled, and a really seasoned InfoSec professional with us, Mehzad. And Mehzad, it's really good to see you again, I believe, after 15, 16 years. I recall going back in 2006, our first encounter was you were Middle East based, and we were having the first CISSP bootcamp in Pakistan. And you were the first one to represent ISC2, and you came as a proctor and you conducted the exam. So I still recall that time, and we have a long association to go. So it's very good to see. Besides that Mehzad is now a group chief for the InfoSec areas for the Angro group. So it's not only the MNC, it's not only the industry, it's not only energy sector, the whole lot of Angro we all know. We don't have to go in details. We don't have the time to explain the Angro business. So first of all, congratulations on that role. You're leading the InfoSec in that specific area in Pakistan. You're amongst the leading people again in that area who have actually made industry aware of the importance of InfoSec. So that's one side. So over to you, a quick intro. You have a big shop, but a quick intro.
Sure. Thanks, Ali, for recalling all these sweet memories. So for the audience, first of all, I'm really honored being called by CSAC Wonderful Forum. Highly appreciation for them for all this effort. And for the audience, as Ali said, I'm Mehzad Sahar, and I'm currently working as a group head information security at Angro Corporation. And I have overall 22 years of experience, all in cybersecurity. And earlier, I have served as a chief information security officer of Banker Falah, Telenor, PTCL in Pakistan. And I have led security in Du, Etisalat, and Saudi Aramco in the Middle East. For me, practically, with this mesh of interconnected devices and social media applications today, the digital privacy is an obsolete word for me, which should be exempted from the English dictionary in view of evolving world of cybersecurity threats and ongoing compromise. And why this is, and that's why what we will discuss in detail in this upcoming panel discussion. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah. So thank you, Mehzad. And we all know recently ISO body, differentiated the between information security and cybersecurity. And they have categorically mentioned that cybersecurity is to deal with the protection of people. And InfoSec is the whole conventional ball game. So we have Uzma with us. Uzma Nori.
Assalamu alaikum all. First of all, thank you so much, CSAC, for inviting me for this panel. That's truly an honor for me. About myself, my name is Uzma Noreen. I've got almost more than 2 decades of experience in IT infrastructure, information security, data privacy, and information security auditing. At present, my currently I'm working with an IT organization that's a software house that's named as TO. It's a Danish software house, and we have client base in Scandinavia region. And in parallel, as a consultant to enhance my skills in information security auditing, I'm also associated with DAS, that's a certification body. And I go out to conduct audit on behalf of that certification body, particularly in IT industry. I did audit of a couple of named IT organizations within Islamabad. And then prior to TO, my most of the experiences with IT industry and telco. I've worked with Enterprise DB. I've built up their global infrastructure, and of course, once you build it, you ensure to secure it as well. And then prior to Enterprise DB, I have worked for a national organization, that's the Faji Foundation head office. I am the pioneer one to build networks for the tower and their hospital back in early 2000. And prior to that, I have experience working with Alcatel Pakistan and Pakistan Tobacco. That's it from my side. And about my, I'm passionate about learning new skills every day. And of course, giving back to the society, whatever a little information I've got and learned. That's it.
So good to have you with us, Uzma. So to begin with it quickly, so Maliha, so what is the difference between privacy and security? How do you take it?
Thank you, Ali. I appreciate you start with a very important and genuine question, I must say, because what I have observed so far, that security and privacy is being treated as same, which is not true in reality. Security and privacy are related because somehow they have the same end objective, and the way of treating them, which is access control under the umbrella of confidentiality. But as I said, um, security and privacy are strongly interconnected, but they are not the same. So knowing the difference is very important for better understanding how they work and how they work and what each means to the organization. When we talk about security, security is something which as an individual, as an organization, or as a nation, you think is worth protecting. And when we talk about security, it is something which revolves around the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information. Let me give you an example. Like, as a nation, as a organization, and as an individual, on a daily basis, we create, we process, we store, and transmit a lot of data. And that data could be a personal information, that could be a trade secret, that could be an intelligence, that could be a copyrighted informations. This information is obviously is very important and essential to the bodies pertaining to it. But the same data is extremely important to the bad actor. Bad actor, when I say bad actor, in our cybersecurity field and our in lingo, we call them cyber criminals. So when the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data is compromised, we call it a cybersecurity incident. So cut it short, when we say cybersecurity, we actually talking about the collection of methods, tools, and technology to protect data pertaining to individuals, organization, and even nations against disclosure, modification, and destruction of data or information, whatever. Whilst when we talk about privacy, privacy in contrast focuses on protecting one single identity, the individuals. So this applies to all the data related to individuals, such as name, birth date, address, financial data, national ID numbers, or medical records, whatever you say. So it actually means handling personal data with respect to confidentiality and anonymity, which criminals may use to commit if breached for fraud and identity theft. So privacy revolves around fairness, transparency, consent, subject right, security, and accountability. So this is very important to understand the difference so that you can identify the risk related to it and apply the control accordingly. Here I would like to share a very interesting fact that you can have security without privacy, but you cannot have privacy without security. Why? Because security includes the law and regulation requiring companies to protect your data. Whilst when we talk about security, it's a technical method to use to protect the data. So knowing the difference is very important. So I must appreciate you started with a very important question.
Yeah. So thank you, Maliha, for a much elaborated answer. More so, like recently, I just mentioned that ISO differentiated between cybersecurity and information security. I think in the times to come, privacy already, I believe in implementation, we take it separate. But you know, the three things going to lead. InfoSec was already there. Cybersecurity just got a realization that it's a separate topic, and privacy obviously has to sit separately. So we're going to have chief privacy officers. We already have chief information security officers, and they're going to be separate chief cybersecurity officers in the time to come. Like we already have chief digital innovation officers. So again,
absolutely,
yeah.
Privacy is absolutely a different ball game. So you have to understand the difference.
Yeah. So because more and more so data going on internet and cloud now these days, so the biggest concern would be privacy also. So there has been a lot of concern on security side, but now we're going digital, we're going door to door, home to home. So it's not face to face anymore. So there's more attention to be given to that side. So as we speak about digitalization, so if I engage on for this to help us elaborate that moving towards digitalization, so how much privacy needs to be incorporated along with security, you think?
Thank you, Ali. First of all, moving towards digitalization, it has increased the amount of data and the volume of data that is being collected now. In the earlier days, when this was only the information was recorded only in the physical form or on the papers, the information that used to be collected was very less. But now we have a lot of information. And at the same time, we have information and we have convenience of connecting the information to one subject or vice versa also. So it is important that we understand that digitalization is increasing the amount of information that is being stored. And as Maliha already said, that we cannot have data privacy without security. So security is there to control the access to the information, the legitimate access, and avoiding any kind of unwanted or unauthorized access to the information and data. So privacy protects our information, and in a way that we do not want to share the information is supposed to remain unshared. And it may be our health related information, it may be personal finances information, it may be something like business secrets or business information or anything like that person doesn't want to disclose. So informational privacy is one of the 4 dimensions of data privacy, which include social privacy, psychological privacy, and physical privacy. So defining the requirements is, first of all, it depends on the regulations and the compliance requirements. The compliance regulations are like, say, for banking in Pakistan, it is a state bank that defines the level of privacy and the information that needs to be made private, kept private. And the compliance requirements are international standards like GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA. And after we have defined that which regulations and which compliance requirements are we required to follow and are we supposed to follow, then we have to, first of all, segregate and define the personally identifiable information of the customers and of the employees. I mean, all the data subjects. Then the financial transaction record or health records that we are maintaining, or the business information that is being maintained. And then important thing is to define the data owner. We generally, while studying information security as a subject, we understood that it is the business owner who is the data owner also. But that business owner is he may not have, or they may not have full understanding of what are the privacy requirements. So in some developed organizations and the developed countries, they have started to mark the CISO or have first of all data privacy officer, and then there is one more way. Then we make the CISO the owner of the data, and who defines and determines the level of access that is required. The minimum should be on the least privilege principle. The access should be on the least privilege principle, that anyone wanting an access should be exposed to the information, only the information that he or she requires to process, nothing more than that. And the data custodians should very well understand that the level of that the information they are maintaining is important for the business, for the customer as a person, and for the business as an for the organization as a business. So defining the level of privacy, it is actually it varies from organization to organization. People and the organizations, they have to understand and they have to determine on their based on their regulatory requirements, based on the compliance requirements, and based on the volume of information they are storing. And again, it is only the privacy level is not a one size fit all. Privacy requirements are not one size fit all for all organizations. Thank you.
So thank you I think very nicely explained. It's not only regulators say over the privacy and data, but yes, there has to be a need assessment on the organization on its own also that described. So we will take forward on this issue later in our session today with some other panelists also. But before we go there, so we have just discussed digitalization. So with that, obviously, so we put more roads on the car, we face more accidents. So now we're talking about digitalization, going digitized, and it's going cyber all over. So cyberspace is ever busy, right? So if I focus to Dr. Rubab on this, so what are some emerging threats and trends we face in 2020 and going on in 2021 now?
Thank you, Ali. As highlighted by towards the digitization, if we are moving, we need to highlight more on the privacy and the security concerns. Of course, there are many compelling threats and trends to the cybersecurity ecosystem that we have observed in our last year, 2020. Cyber crimes have become a big news, with large data and security breaches at companies generating the headlines, and cyber threats from the foreign locales such as China, Russia, and US business and the US elections lately. To name a few of the cyber security threats that were reported in last year are from different categories, counting from cloud jacking, deep fakes, disinformation on social media, phishing attacks, bots, ransomwares. So some of the threats in 2020 were not new. According to the data that we have from the IBM report, they reported that one of the 4 attacks they have fixed in September 2020 were already there. They were actually linked to the good old ransomwares. So working from home, meanwhile, back in 2020, this has offered another approach vector for the threat actors, and a new information security threats emerged. From the privileged credentials compromised to the use of mixed personal networks, attackers wasted no time in hopping over the lower bars for the entry. So IT teams, meanwhile, they have worked very hard to defend the potential weak points and cut down on emerging risks by improving the identity and access management, enhancing on data encryption, and switching to the managed services. But last year, cybersecurity trends are important to 2021 because they set the stage. Both the companies and the cyber criminals, they know the new normal of IT at a distance level. So what happens next if we all know about the risks? So we need to prepare our digital platforms. We need to protect the mainly on the critical industrial control systems, the operational technology that we have, the IT systems that we are engaging from. And we need to protect these all from the cybersecurity threats in a different endeavor. And they all have unique operational frameworks. Their unique access points and a variety of legacy systems, they are emerging. So the unique operational frameworks, they offer us diverse opportunities to target this. The explosion of these connected devices is being compromised. The Internet of Things or the industrial IoTs is a challenging task. The trends of integrating the hardware and the software, this is also a growing network sensors are there, and they are redefining the surface of attack opportunities for hackers across all the digital infrastructures available to us around us, and to help protect from the threats, cybersecurity threats, the critical infrastructure operator should apply a comprehensive risk framework to implement and address the vulnerabilities, including the cybersecurity by design. They should also implement on the defense in-depth zero trust to counter the cybersecurity threats. It is especially important for the public and private sectors to coordinate and apply and enforce the industry security protocols. The most important tasks based on the trends we have witnessed in the last year is to have a mitigation strategy and be vigilant and try to fill in the gaps and learn from the lessons of this recent cybersecurity breaches and prepare for the better cybersecurity in year 2021. Thank you. And that's all on my side.
So thank you, Dr. Bob. I think Mehzad has some issues. So I was, just trying to pose a question to Mehzad on this. So maybe, if we carry on from here, like we just discussed some kind of threats and trends and in our area. So, so Mehzad, are you back? So Mehzad, you back?
Yeah, sorry, there was some network.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Bob, for highlighting some of the emerging threats that our industry is facing.
Can I hear your question, please?
Yeah. So, so if we take it forward, and if Mehzad, if you could help us actually highlight some of the industries that were most targeted in the last year.
Okay, thanks, Ali. So for this question, when it comes to managing digital risk and facing potential cyber attack, each industry faces its own unique motivations and assets and geopolitical.
Mehzad, you can switch your video off. I think you're having some internet connection.
Sector.
Yeah.
Okay, is this okay now? So while finance has been the topmost constitution for the past 5 years, the manufacturing and energy sectors saw a hike in attacks, jumping 5 levels, I will say, from their respective 2019 ranking. And the financial sector was affected by a large portion of server attacks, data theft, and some ransomware cases. These attacks types are, coherent with attack motivation in targeting organizations that move, ranked as the eighth most attack in 2019 report, but now it jumped to second place in 2020, which is driven by the interest malicious actors have in targeting infrastructure with connection to.
Mehzad, you're breaking up. If you can switch off your video only.
Operational technology, which is called, the OT. Okay, 1 minute. Yes. Stop video. Okay, so am I now properly?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the manufacturing sector, of downtime is a costly matter. There was a high hack indicating that actors sought to disrupt operation in place where the pressure to pay ransom would be great. So in 2020, the manufacturing industry also became more critical than ever with the production of personal protection equipments and other critical supplies. The sector saw increased activity across the globe, which could have been a reason for attackers to target it in a more busiest time. And launching data theft and business email compromise attack on manufacturing across the globe. And similarly, energy jumped from 9th place in 2019 to 3rd place in 2020, further underscoring attackers' focus on OT connected organization in 2020. So healthcare jumped from last place in 2019 to 7th place in 2020, probably driven by COVID-19 related health care attacks and a barrage of ransomware attack against hospital. So while it ranked 7th in 2020, the number of attacks on healthcare more than double compared to 2019, and almost a third of all attacks on the healthcare sector were ransomware cases. The healthcare sector, I believe, is is going through extremely challenging time, having to respond to a global pandemic while increasingly being targeted by sophisticated cyber crimes and nation-state threat actors out to disrupt and steal data from organizations in this industry. Over to you, Wali.
Yeah. So thank you. So I believe almost the cyberspace, like it covers everything. So it's just like sky on our heads. So we share the sky and we share the cyberspace also. So Mehzad just highlighted that almost every industry actually faced, the some kind of attacks. So that's scary, by the way, and I think it's worrisome for all of us. I think we all belong to different sectors and many sectors, and so Mehzad briefly talked about the impact of COVID also. So Uzma, if I ask you how COVID has shifted the paradigm of IT industry in general, so can you highlight something on this?
Thank you, Ali. Yes. Remote work is the clear leader in terms of paradigm shift in any industry, regardless of industry. Remote work is going to stay over here, even though after the invention of vaccines. Before, COVID, there were three types of potential stories about the remote work. We had companies who were fully equipped, and because of their business need, they were opting for work from home somehow. And number two, there were organizations and companies who were considering it as an option, and they were a bit ready to adopt this model. And third was there were companies who never thought about going towards remote at all. But now, because of this paradigm shift, this remote work is new normal for every industry and every organization. And then, of course, that brings in the cybersecurity at the forefront, because you have to upgrade the IT infrastructure to support telework, and you have to work on the security of for the secure channel of teleworking for your remote working employees. And then, since this has this new normal is in place, we have enhanced the use of collaboration and communication tools, because people were not aware of it and they were not using it. But now it's we can see extensive use of collaboration and communication tools in any industry. And then, of course, it has some, of course, associated challenge for the organization. To, of course, improve their IT infrastructure. They need to improve their security models. They need to implement security controls for their teleworking setups. And beside, this technical stuff and security and all, I can see organizations, especially IT companies, they are facing challenges in employee engagements in the organization culture. Because prior to this new normal, people they used to learn the culture of the organization by by being there physically. You never needed a formal presentation to communicate culture to the new onboarding employees and all. But probably I can see IT industry, they are facing this challenge from 100% remote work from now onwards. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Uzma. So we just heard Dr. Rubav and Mehzad actually, making us more fearful with what cyber threats industry has to offer. And then Uzma was icing on the cake, frankly speaking. Like COVID is even, devastating. So, but I'm sure market has some tools and techniques for data protection available. What do you say?
Yes, Ali. There are a number of tools and there are a number of techniques which need to be employed, and actually in combinations. It is not just the thing that we just install the tool and we start using it and we are safe. First of all, the foremost requirement is to discover the data that needs to be protected. I mean, to identify what is the sensitive data in your organization or in your paradigm. That is sensitive because we call it sensitive because it is sensitive for exposure, it is sensitive for display, and it is sensitive for it is important to be kept secret and kept private. So data discovery is the first thing. It is in combination with data classification. The data, all the data that we have and we maintain in our organization and databases is not required to be kept secret, but there are certain fields which are which required. So defining the data through data discovery, we can define the levels, and after classification, we can define the level of classification, level of sensitivity that is, and level of privacy that needs to be implemented on certain types of data. Then we have to implement certain controls on the network, which actually prevent an intruder from entering into the network. This is for primarily for external people from gaining access to the an organization's network. Then we have to back up our data and test its recovery processes, which we generally call the business continuity planning. And in this business continuity planning, the worst case scenario is when you lose the data. And in the very recent past, we have seen organizations who have been affected with ransomware and who have not been able to recover who have not been able to gain access to the data, which was other than the backups. So it was the backup that helped them recover the data. So protecting your endpoints, protecting your servers, protecting your user computers from malware, because ransomware and viruses, these are types of malware that affect, and once these malware enter into the network, that can affect anyone on the network. And there's some we also have to implement some, actually we have to go for trainings, employee trainings especially on social engineering and phishing and these kind of techniques. So that they can stay safe in case they are spearphished or they have been directly attacked. So especially the C-level in an organization, they need to know and they need to understand what kind of messages and what kind of emails and what kind of data that we receive on the computer. They should open it, and how should they open it. So anti-malware solution is there to protect the endpoints of your system and of your organization, of your network. And then there is an important thing, that is data encryption. You have to define the level of encryption, and all the data again is not required to be encrypted, but sensitive data, yes, it should be encrypted. It should be encrypted while on the network movement, and while on the storage and backup and archival. Actually, these are three levels. There is one more area in which we say that data should be encrypted in the while under processing, but that becomes very subjective. And for that, we have to create an environment where only processing is also done in an encrypted environment. So to detect whether there is an intruder in your network, or to prevent anyone from intruding into your network, the firewall and other network controls are there, but there are solutions which need to be employed to identify if there is some, first of all, to prevent if somebody is trying to intrude into a network, and then to detect if there has been an intrusion into the network. So further, there are file integrity monitoring solutions which determine, and which actually, once you define what data should be accessible to anyone, to a particular user, and what kind of actions and what kind of operations does that user perform on that data. So file integrity monitoring is just to monitor the integrity of the data, whether means the data should remain intact, it should not be unauthorized, subjected to unauthorized changes. And then file integrity monitoring is in combination with certain other solutions for generating alerts in case of somebody accesses that data. Then we have data loss prevention, or generally we call it data leak prevention solutions, which are implemented and deployed within the organization, but its prerequisite is the data classification. Once you classify your data, and your classification is implemented in the DLP solution, then you can prevent users and the legitimate users from flowing the information out of the organization or to somebody who is not authorized. So again, it's all is in combination with access control to the data. And again, as I earlier said, it is all on the least privilege basis. So, and there is one more thing that generally information security people are very happy to learn about. That is the SIM solution, the security information and event management solution. The SIM solutions actually are there to identify the network the behavior of the systems, the behavior of users, and behavior and traffic on the network, and identify if there is some kind of solution or some kind of some kind of attack on the network, or some users are not providing actually not behaving according to their defined working. Again, monitoring the suspicious activity is generally through SIM solution, but the SIM solution is just the log monitoring system, and it has some AI features in it also. So, but again, this is monitoring is done on certain logs and certain activities of users and systems and applications which are performed on the network and which are performed on the systems. So there's one more thing that we must not underestimate the hackers and from their interest in our company. If I say that I am my scope of work is not something may not be of an interest to anyone or any hacker, so I should be aware that there are people who are there might be somebody who competing my business, or there might be somebody interested in using my data for their own use, for some malicious purpose, or for some the purpose of their own. Or to secure the information, we have to implement a zero trust model. Zero trust model is like the system does not trust anyone. The system, yes, we are all we have all employees are bona fide employees, but the system, the computer system, the network, and the environment, the system must not trust any particular user or particular person. The system must not know the user. It should only give and grant access based on certain parameters to the predefined requirements and completion of the predefined requirements, and the relationship and the workflow as planned and as defined in the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, On.
Thank you, Ali.
Actually, yeah, thank you. So as you just spoke about zero trust architecture, so I have a session in the evening today on zero trust on the CybHer board. So I have taken some good points from here. And so as like On just mentioned, that when we talk about tools and technology, so it's not only people and processes and technology only, but there's a there's a fourth element of the unknown, the hackers. So it's not only technology that we have to buy from market, it's how we implement it and what are the processes in place. So it's the whole works. So it was very lightning On. So it's people, process, and technology, and the unknown, the hackers and the non-state actors and all that. So Mehzad is liking it, probably, the unknown part.
Very much, yeah, very much convinced.
Yeah. So I would refer back to On's earlier discussion on digitalization, and he mentioned that it's the privacy is regulator driven also, it's industry standards driven also. So Maliha, knowing your some expertise dealing in the standards area, so what are some of these privacy standards available to us in market as an industry, as professionals? So something to start as a baseline or to excel at.
Prominently GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations, which came out in 2018. And there is no doubt that this privacy law in the world happens to be the toughest privacy law as we speak today. And as of today, there are 80 to 85 countries all over the world who have some sort of privacy legislation or the other. Many of these laws have been updated since the advent of GDPR because they want to mirror the concept of GDPR. They want to have the same level of details and the same level of GDPR that same level of granularity which GDPR brings about. But I would like to mention here that complying with GDPR is not that easy. This is not something which can be carried out with a short period of time. It needs to be understand that complying with this toughest regulation is requires a lot of analysis, and it contains a lot of complexity. Because it's an European regulation, so here we have two major important question arises here, that what is the intention for GDPR and the applicability of the regulations. So I start with the intentions of GDPR. Basically, GDPR is something brought about protects people right to privacy. When we talk about privacy, we have nowadays a lot of challenges because of the digitization. Even you, when, for an example, if you are alone in a room, you cannot be 100% sure that you are not being tracked or you are not being watched because of the mobile facilities, because of the advent of internets of things and lots of application we have installed in our mobile phones. So basically, the intentions behind the GDPR is not only to protect people's right to privacy, but it is very, very relevant to the challenges we have today. For example, for an online monitoring system, when you don't know that you are being tracked, at least you have the right to know that the application you have installed in your phones is going to record, because they have access to your microphone on your phone, and you don't know the cookie store on your devices, what they are doing, what browsing activities are they hacking. We just don't know. If some organization is collecting my email ID, but they are going to be using that email in to send some marketing email, and same goes for the SMS thing, and they are later sending me some marketing messages. So these are the present day challenges we all facing. So GDPR not only protect personal privacy, but also seek controls, and it's basically give us controls to protect one's private life. So GDPR is very, very relevant to our today's challenges because of the as I said, because of the advancement of digitization. Now the very major question arises, what is the applicability of GDPR? So GDPR does not depend upon your nationality, that does not based upon your passport status or visa, nothing like that, but it applies to the whole world if they are meeting some specific requirements. I'm not going into the detail of the requirements because we are already running short of time, so I'm just giving a brief idea that there are what are the countries who are following the privacy law. GDPR, though it's a European regulation, but it can be applicable to the whole world, whatever organization is willing to comply with. Apart from that, across the world, if we see, we have privacy law in different parts of the world. We have privacy law in GCC countries, we have privacy law in Oman, we have privacy law in Kuwait, we have privacy law in Bahrain. Even in I remember last year in UAE there was going to be expected privacy federal law. I am not sure it is implemented or not, but DIFC data protection law was passed last year July, and it is applicable now. If we look at outside the GCC, we can see privacy law in Brazil, we can see privacy law in Nigeria. In APAC region, we can see the privacy law in Hong Kong, Singapore, India. And there are 80 to 85 countries altogether who are following privacy law one way or the other. And we cannot forget, obviously, the G5 nation, Australia, USA, Canada, and Europe, who are following GDPR. Unfortunately, if we talk about Pakistan, does not at present have a direct data protection legislation, but our constitution, Article 14.1, does say something about the protection of our homes and privacy of our homes. So this is in brief, in general, about the GDPR. And obviously, there are certain other standards as well. We come to know about, which is HIPAA and GCC region, which is GCC control privacy law. So there are a number of privacy law different countries are following, but GDPR has taken over.
So Malia, we have different standards for different industries, countries, and when addressing data privacy. So much enlightening. So Uzma, like Maliha just elaborated on, different kind of, standard sets we have available, industry globally, industry-wise, and all that. And she also mentioned that that's a challenge. So is that really a challenge of having different standards of, for different industries and geographical differences? How do you take it?
Yeah, thank you, Ali. And Jesse On has already shed a light about the tools and technologies associated with this, and Maliha has shed a light about the security standards available in the market. Yes, after all these, every industry, especially IT and other business leaders, they need to understand the potential risk associated with the privacy threats. One has to understand the potential risk, and they need to address it accordingly. They should not addressing it for the sake of getting the compliance within their industry, like HIPAA for the medical, CCPA for operating in US, GDPR in Europe and all, PCI for the financial institution and all. But yes, it's a continuous ongoing process to protect your resources, beside industry specific standard. But I can highlight few points which can help any industry to highlight the risk associated with the privacy attacks and how they can prevent it. First of all, any organization, whether IT or any business, they need to maintain their data inventories. They need to understand what exactly they are, along with the classification, what they are collecting, whether they are collecting personal sensitive data, personal data, whatever. So they need to deploy the controls accordingly. Then based on the data inventories, an organization need to perform a privacy risk assessment, because that will vary from industry to industry and organization to organization, and to the amount of data they are collecting, for processing as a controller or processor or whatever, in whatever role they are. But they need to know whatever they are they have, and what are the associated risk they have. Then they need to strategically invest, not just as a cost, but to strategically invest to compare the penalties associated with this compliance standard they have to comply within their industry. And they have to compare the penalties and improving or securing the infrastructure or the data they are collecting within their organization. So, and then accordingly, if they have to take that data, they have to process, that's their business need, they have to incorporate consents accordingly. Once it's deployed and built, one should not be at rest at all, because usually organization, they do have disaster recovery, business continuity planning, and they have those policies and plannings in place, and they deploy those, but they are then at rest. That should not be the case. Actually, they need to test it on specific intervals, time to time. They need to execute their business continuity, their disaster recovery, and whatever the controls they have put in place according to their business needs and to protect their data. They need to test it and then improve it continuously. It should not be like that. And then of course then comes to the organization policies part. because like technology trends are changing. Bring your own device, IoT devices. We are using like these sync and storage accounts and all, these smart gadgets and all. They are like potential threats, and use of social media on official networks and all. So like based on the protection need an organization has one has to like implement the technical controls to protect that. And then you need to define smart policies to handle those. If you have to restrict or not, whatever, then you have to like implement those policies for the organization. Once those are like deployed, then the awareness part comes in, which is very crucial and important, because you need to continuously aware like your stakeholders, whether employees, your like in whatever role you are, either controller or processor, whatever. You need to make an awareness sessions on like on a proper defined intervals, uh, especially on the onboarding part of the employees whosoever is coming into, because that depends. You are liable to like comply with that particular standard. If you works in like Europe, you have to comply in any case GDPR. But if a user is coming from a national organization and all, you have to give them the awareness, like new employees onboarding. You have to give them the awareness, like you have to comply with this, and these are the policies in place, these are the controls in place. You have to take care of this, and that awareness like is very much needed. Though you have everything in place, if you are not like educating your employees about the threats and what they have to be vigilant about, you will definitely be at stake. And then most important of all, like we have to work on definitely we will be signing with our business partners these processing agreements. Based on those, we have to like work on signing getting the NDA and extended confidentiality agreements signed from the organizations and the employees whosoever will have even read access to the data to like process your business needs and all. I think that's it from my end. By like by taking care of all these 8 or 9 points, any organization in the industry, especially IT and the others as well, they can comply with the relevant standard. Definitely. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Uzma. So, Mehzad, I'm going to come back to you. And, if you carry on to Uzma's say, so you think there are any benchmarks specifically identifying critical data in any organization, or how do you take it?
Ali, what I believe, there is no specific benchmark to identify the critical data in an organization, because it varies from industry to industry. Example, for a bank, customer credit card and their secret personal relevant questionnaires are critical data. For a telco company, CDR, customer data record, which reveals their location and other private information, is critical data to be protected. And for a manufacturing company, their plant drawings, certain chemical propositions and formulas to build their own product is top secret and critical data. For food, for example, for food business, relevant recipes to make certain tea, KFC chicken, Pepsi, Coke, ingredients, and a certain composition to produce such unique taste are, called critical data. And for a healthcare industry, they spend millions of dollars for research and development to produce certain medicine or cure in the form of, for example, COVID vaccine. So critical data are information that is vital to the operation of the business. And if the data gets compromised, the business becomes exposed to risk that could lead to financial losses, bankruptcy, legal issues, and even, closure. So over the last few years, we have seen businesses and high-level organizations lose critical data. Retailers, banks, and credit card companies have had their customer database, stolen, and government offices and agencies have had their email compromised. Threats have been made by cyber criminals to attack critical data of utilities company in order to disrupt services to citizens. Like we know, K Electric is one of the examples. Thus, it is very, very important for business to secure and protect critical data. That is the conclusion. And unfortunately, most businesses are not aware of what their critical data are. So most businesses don't know which data needs protection, and this is because they don't know which processes need the data. And business owners and top-level executive should request actually the practical solutions senior management to conduct a data analysis and I would say and pinpoint the processes that are being supported for this purpose.
Yeah. So thank you. So I see what I gather from the discussion above and is focused what just Mehzad mentioned, that we need to have specialized data privacy officers industry-wise, because if there is no standard, obviously the implementation has to be, process driven and the need driven. Like On also mentioned earlier that, we need to focus on what are the requirements of the industry are. So it's a mix and match of how to, it's a not one size fit all approach. That's what I gather. So that's interesting. So data privacy is no wonder it's an upcoming field then. So Uzma, if I come back to you, and if you elaborate further on what you just described on the different benchmark. So how much vendor management and SLAs play the part to achieve data privacy, especially in the ever-evolving cloud environment?
Yes, that's a vital part actually, because you are sharing the responsibilities. If you held responsible for hosting a data for your customer, or even if you have read access, if you are hosting an infrastructure for the for any other organization, you are not having data in your own premises, in your own infrastructure, but still. And On has shed a light about digital transformation. Every business is going on because that's the need of the time, because nobody wanted to invest on the local infrastructure and the associated physical infrastructure liabilities with them, power arrangement, environmental controls and all. So instead of spending on those, people would definitely move on to cloud and all, or to the hosted providers to host their infrastructure and their data and their applications and their business needs there. So SLA should definitely they play a vital role in that, to delegate basically to share the penalties and delegate responsibilities to the providers who is providing you the access. No matter whatever model of cloud you select, basically you as an organization held responsible for your own security in any model. But SLAs plays a role in delegating couple of few controls and sharing of penalties in that. And SLAs should have that should clearly have three major components about the service objectives: remediation of the policies and penalties and their arrangements, and if there are some exclusions in general. Usually we have out of the box sort of agreement which you have to agree in any case online, but depends upon the cloud service provider size and the customer need and the customer size, there are custom SLAs available as well. To negotiate those SLAs, one has to there are some important factors to clarify at the time of having those agreements in place, because if you have signed up some privacy agreement with your customers and all, then you need to delegate those controls and share the penalties. But the one you are hosting infrastructure, or you are hosting your setup there, you have to define your service delivery level, where you should focus on about the roles and responsibilities of the relevant stakeholder, incidents and the recovery stuff and associated stuff, how you will incidental response, what will be the response time, who held responsible, if you have selected pass, this is your part, this is service provider part and all. And then of course definitely the data assurances as well. You have to check what they are offering to secure data, what you have, though you have to select based on your need whatever they are offering, but you definitely have to look into it. And because of your locale, your associated or relevant, the standard change. So you have to decide where you are hosting your data and all, and their monitoring stuff, whatever their offerings are to protect the data. And then moving onwards, your business terms, how you will end the contract, how you will renew the contract, and after ending, how you will purge, you will like them to purge the data, whatever, although it's your responsibility, but you wanted to delegate a part to them and their assurance as well. Then some legal aspect as well you need to cover as well, so you can share in case of breaches and all. What are then they have to be vigilant about ensuring those controls in place for your setup. So you have to negotiate the penalties and all stuff with them, that by telling them how important it is to ensure this stuff. So these four factors, if you cover all in SLAs in agreement, then you are probably safe. And we have to consider these.
Thank you, Uzma. So, cloud security is, I believe, it's a security within a security itself. So it's a whole different topic, and we need to have a separate session someday on this. But thank you, Uzma, for covering most of it and making us aware of some of the needs we need to focus on when going on the cyberspace. Although we are done with our time, but how can we just forget this COVID arena? So I think I'm liking the discussion, and we can have a quick go on that also. So Mehzad, what is the COVID impact on cybersecurity and privacy? If we just bring it to the COVID side.
Okay. So Ali, the coronavirus pandemic has created new challenges for businesses as they adopt to an operating model in which working from home has become the new normal. And companies are accelerating their digital transformation, and cybersecurity is now a major concern. The reputational and operational, legal and compliance implications could be, considerable if cybersecurity risks are neglected. And in numbers, the 47% of individuals fall for a phishing scam while working at home, as per new study. And the cyber attackers see the pandemic as an opportunity to set up their criminal activities by exploiting the vulnerability of employees working from home and capitalizing on people's strong interest in coronavirus-related news. Example, malicious fake coronavirus-related websites and vaccination. An example of the criminal exploiting the cybersecurity weaknesses in remote working has been the series of cyber attack on video conferencing services while compromising people privacy. And if you remember, between last year, between Feb 2022 and May 2020, more than 500,000 people were affected by breaches in which the personal data of video conferencing services users, for example, name, password, email addresses, they were all stolen and sold on the dark net. And what we have noted instance where unwanted and uninvited member gain access to virtual meetings and obtain confidential and sensitive information, which is then sold to another party or made available to the public to damage the company as well as personal, reputation. A home working environment does not have sophisticated enterprise prevention and detection measures. So additionally, home Wi-Fi networks are much easier to attack. And human error is another, I will say, issue of concern. And prior to the pandemic, human errors was already a major cause of cyber insecurity. And with home working now, however, the problem is even greater. And when they work from home, employees may be interrupted in the work they are doing by family members or social visitors. These type of restriction, what I believe, can make individuals more careless. And technology companies, governments, and international agencies have all, although they have announced measures to help contain the spread of COVID-19, and some of these measures impose severe restrictions on people's freedom, privacy perspective, including to their privacy and other human rights, and an unprecedented level of surveillance, and data exploitation, and I will say misinformation are being tested across the world. And many of these measures are based on a extraordinary power only to be used temporarily in emergencies, frankly speaking. Others use exemption in data protection laws to share data. And some may be effective and based on advice from this episode, other will not be. And so, but all of them must be temporarily necessary and should maintain well. So it is very essential as a conclusion to keep track of them. And when the pandemic is over, such extraordinary measures must be put to an end and held to and account. Over to you.
Yeah. So thank you, Mehzad. Thank you for a much elaborated answer. And so we're all facing all this. What just Mehzad explained, I think it's self-explanatory also. I mean, like, we have been experiencing this. We've been seeing this all over the news. But there's one more thing, what I have been hearing often, and since this COVID has caught us, is the ransomware. And, it has hit many of the biggest and largest organizations all over the world. And it has many dimensions that why this ransomware is being planted. It's to get, to bring other systems, other organizations and systems down. One is to, mint money. And it also contributes towards the, money laundering aspect as well. So Dr. Rabab is with us. So if you could just tell us some ransomware variants this COVID situation has, maybe given birth to or otherwise.
Okay, thank you, Ali, for summarizing what Mehzad has already explained well. It should also be recalled that financial gain is not the only motive behind cyber attacks. Hacktivism and its aim of damaging the business reputation is an additional threat caused by the ransomwares. So COVID-19 pandemic has made organizations, including hospitals, governments, universities, and many organizations more conscious about losing access to their system and more motivated to pay the ransom. So the criminals take advantage of this situation by running more ransomware attacks or offering ransomware as a service on the dark web. So COVID-19 has significantly shifted the threat landscape from attacks on individuals and businesses to the more critical infrastructure, including government and major corporations. So malicious cyber attacks were behind the majority of healthcare IT security incidents in this pandemic era. So cyber criminals have consistently sought to take advantage of organizations that rapidly deployed remote systems and networks to support the shift into remote workforce. Hackers have also targeted the increase in security vulnerabilities to steal the data, disrupt the operations, generate the profits. So the creation of new ransomware and malware samples soared during the pandemic. There were 11 more new ransomware samples created in the first 6 months of 2020, which was like in the same period of in 2019. So as people sought information on what was happening to ease their sense of uncertainty during the pandemic, Google searches related to the coronavirus rose. One particular peak occurred on, I guess, 15th or 16th of March in the last year, according to Google Trends public data. They created an environment ripe for ransomware attacks. Often cyber criminals camouflage the ransomware under the new information about coronavirus, trying to lure the victims into clicking on malicious links. If I specifically talk about example, in Italy, one of the most affected countries by COVID-19 for infections, attackers created a web page mimicking the Italian Federation of Pharmacists websites. It was set up to trick the users into downloading the ransomware as a dashboard displaying data on COVID-19. Other ransomware targeted users of popular applications are including Android operating systems and Microsoft Office itself. So ransomware attacks during the pandemic hit aid organizations, medical billing companies, manufacturers, government institutions, traffic agencies, software providers, and many more. Notably, the most critical sector during the pandemic was healthcare, which was the most targeted for attacks. Cyber adversaries have targeted the hospitals in particular for years, as gaining access to the confidential patient information, such as their medical history or surgery appointments. So, as such, hospitals are highly prone to paying a ransom. The COVID-19 pandemic stretched the healthcare systems to their limits, eliminating any breathing room they may have had if targeted in the pre-pandemic times. That means they have become even bigger prey in the eyes of cyber criminals in the last year. As in March 2020, if we recall that there was a hospital in Europe which was a victim of a suspected ransomware attack, which resulted in it shutting down its entire IT network and canceling all the surgeries they have planned. So some operators of ransomware stated that they would no longer target the healthcare, but others are continuing to cash in on the crisis period even. So ransomware thrives during the COVID-19 pandemic, with new samples have increased more than like 70%. Attacks on the infrastructure, including healthcare companies, research labs, have aided to this turmoil. There are some traps for the ransomware that includes information about the vaccines, masks, and short supply of the commodities, also including the financial scams offering the payment to the government assistance during this economic shutdown. So we have also seen more towards more creative ways of extorting the ransoms. These also include if I recall the right terminology for it, this is a double extortion. Nevertheless, there have been many schools that have been hit with the ransomware, like the situation in one of the countries in the US, one of the state in US, sorry, where a school was closed due to a ransomware attack. So there are ways to reduce the likelihood and impact of a cyber attack, but it requires focused action and planning. Companies need to make their remote working practices resilient to the cyber attacks and enhance their development and application of the security measures. What is clear is that ransomware attacks are evolving globally, becoming more complex, merging with the other cyber attacks methods, including the human factor as well, and not going any time away soon, even during the pandemic era.
Okay, so thank you, Rabab, for giving a quick brief on this. And maybe a last question to Mehzad. When we talk about, the magnitudes and of high magnitude areas, so APT is obviously, it's named. So you think that, there are some APT groups that have triggered during this COVID scenario?
Yes, Ali, unfortunately, that is true. And several cyber criminal and state-sponsored advanced persistent threat APT groups, they have been using coronavirus-based phishing as their infection vector to gain a foothold on victim machines and launch malware attacks, just like the spread of coronavirus itself. And China was the first targeted by APT group, and as the virus spread worldwide, so did the attack. And APT groups that have been using coronavirus as a lure, and if you analyze their infection techniques and eventually payload, you can categorize the APT groups based on 4 different attack vectors used in COVID-19 campaign. And for example, template injection, malicious macros, RTF exploit, which is a flexible text format, and malicious link file. In case of like template injection, they refer to a technique in which the actor embeds a script, and upon opening the document, the remote template is dropped and executed. And in this case, the APT group name is Kimsuki, and Gamardan APT used, this type of techniques. There are like APT 32, APT 36, and these are the actors who are known for using malicious macros through these type of attacks. There are another APT group which is known as Calicoso, and they are mostly using embedded documents like RTF Word document to attack people through phishing. And also some APT threat actors groups are using malicious links. And then because then link is a shortcut, basically file used by Microsoft Windows, and it is considered as a shell item. So in this case, a North Korean threat group is very much involved, in this type of attack. So in summary, what we expect that in the coming months, APT threat actors will continue to leverage this crisis to craft a phishing campaign using all such technique, which I tried to mention in a quick way, unfortunately. So this will continue and will actually evolve more and more on coming days. And because these guys, unfortunately, they don't have any mercy what's going on at the human level as a crisis.
So if we talk about future of security and privacy, so we just discussed on some data collection issues in the COVID-19, the threats on the data collection side, and then increased privacy risk we face. We also discussed on pandemic accelerating the use of cloud, making data management and its privacy a challenge on its own. And we also talked about the acceptance of GDPR at global level. But at the same time, there are big techs like Google and Facebook which I have serious reservations with this GDPR, because these big giants have their own data privacy and security laws in place. So how to avoid the contradiction with this GDPR, and GDPR overriding and overruling everything else. So, and we all know this locale concept and having, private cloud and the local cloud all came out after this GDPR and, the recent tussles we're facing in the data privacy globally. And I believe that is still unsettled. That is still taking its shape. We have number of, international and local cloud providers who have now physical presence as a local cloud in Pakistan, although they're international. But and so is the case with US and then Canada, and then we talk about London and all the big economies. We talk about India. So maybe once that has taken shape, or we can also talk about it someday. Let's just talk about WhatsApp. WhatsApp and its privacy policy recently changed. That was everybody was just in a shock that what has happened. But so people are still to figure out that they're all just waiting for the WhatsApp leaks to come up soon. Let's see what comes up. So the possibility of new trends in the market. Let's see what comes after this WhatsApp policy change. Remote working in this new normal was definitely the privacy and security was a nightmare for the remote working. I think if one thing, in fact, I'm glad platforms like Zoom and then Microsoft Teams and other platforms, which are ever busy now, we never had a problem with these platforms providing services. I'm glad that they have responded very, very well to COVID scenario. And the scale up facility they had was, in my personal take is that, as if they have planted this COVID thing and they were all ready for it. So, the aviation industry coming down from 150 billion to 48 billion, and this only Zoom industry crossing 52 billion. So that was tremendous change on the stocks. And so we have data privacy adoption issues where, there's a demand of consensus from the senior management for its implementation. And I think the realization has started getting there. We also discussed about some tools like, having identity access management tool in place to mitigate the privacy risk and, other security models and standards in place. We initiated our talk by briefly describing the three triad of information security, which was availability, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA. And which now, what I take is that it's no more CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It's CIA, availability first, AIC, sorry, availability first, and then integrity and confidentiality. Because cyber security, cyber threat is more posed on bringing other countries' economies down, making things unavailable. So the risk of availability in the CIA triad has taken the priority in the times to come, because future wars would not be only our data is so exposed on internet that I believe one day in 10 years down the line, securing data would not be much of a concern. Data breach would not be much of a concern. It would be all open. We just know last year only, China came up with disclosing all the confidential schemes that were used in the systems built by international vendors, and it was by demand. They had a regulation in place that there has to be nothing confidential from states which would allow international software to be implemented in their territory. So if there is nothing confidential, so it means there is no privacy requirement itself. So so I take it like future concern would be more on the availability side. And even the ransomware, like Dr. Rubab mentioned and Mezad elaborated, that the attacks would be, cyber attacks would not, or these ransomwares would not only be to get money out of the people at loss, but actually the purpose would be to bring systems down, to make services unavailable. We also observed hospital people dying in hospital because of these attacks, and ATM systems not working, observing blackouts and all that. So we're still observing the change in the pattern of in this information security domain and area, and it was good to have you all. I'm really thrilled being here, and I think it's an august group. We have people from industry side, academia, industry, law enforcement experiences also there, and so it's a good forum. I think it was, and thank you CSEC Pakistan for honoring this whole group, and most of all honoring us to lead the first session, the ever first session of cyber and we would love to join back again. So see each of us again sometime in a different role or the same role maybe. Thank you all of us.
Thank you, Khaja.
Thank you, Shisak.